I only have the capacity to work part-time. That's something that I had to learn through experience. In my whole life, I've only ever worked full-time for 2 years. And by the end of it, I was an absolute zombie and I couldn't function. So I think like when we live in a world that has these expectations around work and productivity and how much we should show up, for me to show up as the best person that I can in my work, it's actually working part-time so that I can, have that time to meet my needs.
Welcome to the Focus and Chill podcast, where we discuss unconventional productivity tactics designed for neurospicy people. I interview neurodivergent guests who've figured out secrets for getting a ton of amazing work done without burning out. I'm your host, Jeremy Nagel. I'm an ADHD software developer turned startup founder and PhD candidate. I built FocusBear to help with my own productivity and burnout challenges. Welcome to episode number 136 of the Focus and Chill podcast. I'm thrilled to be joined by Caitlin Hughes today. Caitlin, they is a multi-exceptional, autistic, ADHD, gifted, accredited mental health social worker and founder of Cathartic Collaborations, a neuro-affirming therapy and supervision practice in Meanjin, Brisbane. A PhD candidate at Queensland University of Technology, QUT, Caitlin's research explores autistic mental health and neuro-affirming practice. Caitlin also co-hosts Divergent Dialogues, a podcast and blog that blends research, lived experience, and professional insight to reimagine neurodivergent mental health. Welcome to the show, Caitlin.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, really good to have you on. So could you talk about your own experience with that, the trifactor there of autism, ADHD, and giftedness? When did you realize that you weren't neurotypical? I imagine it started early.
Yes, yeah. I was going to say it's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? All the acronyms and all the different words. So yeah, I always felt a bit out of sync with the people around me, but it wasn't until in my 30s that I was formally diagnosed autistic ADHD and then identified gifted. So yeah, as you can imagine, that was a bit of a shake-up. And it was a bit of an interesting story how it came about. After working in government roles, I got super burnt out. And then I decided to start my own private practice because I felt it'd be a better balance for me. And I started getting all these referrals for like autistic folks and ADHDers and going, "Oh, I'm really like vibing with these clients. This is great." And then I went and did a training with one of my friends and colleagues and co-host of the Divergent Dialogues podcast. And there was this video and there was 3 children and one was female. And there was this narration over the top of the inner experiences of these children. And I'm on Facebook with my friend Tina remotely and I'm going, "Oh my gosh, Tina, I think we're autistic." Like that was me. Like that was us when we were in primary school. So yeah, it was actually through my client work that I found out that I was autistic myself. Yeah, it's been a bit of a journey.
Yeah, it's really interesting about the autism radar and being able to identify neurokin just by feeling a strong sense of connection. And what's it been like since having the realization and going through the identification process?
Oh, it certainly was a process. I think I recognized in myself and a lot of people that I work with, a lot of people go through a grief process after finding out, especially when it's late, because you've gone your whole life not fully understanding yourself or maybe judging yourself for things a little bit more than you would have if you had that context and understanding. So I think it helped me to have a lot more self-compassion and self-understanding.
Yeah, a similar experience for me, and both with getting diagnosed later in life and also that self-compassion. And did it help in terms of the burnout as well? You were saying that working in government wasn't great for that. Has it been better in private practice
Oh,
and
100%.
post-identification?
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, having my own business, I'm able to accommodate myself mentally. I'm able to put things in place that work for me. Being an employee, that's not always the case. So it is a much better balance for me now.
That's great to hear. And did the challenges begin in primary school? You were saying that you could identify with that little child. What was it like when you were growing up? Was it something that you were able to cope with, or was it challenging and then got easier as you got older?
Um, I don't know. I think as you grow up, it has various challenges. Like I can remember, particularly when I was really young, I don't know. I think children, they have this openness and they don't have these critiques or barriers just yet. And then I think you start to accumulate these things over time. So I
Mm.
remember when I think it was year seven, like I was a library monitor and I loved it. And I used to just hang out by myself in the library, reorganizing the books and everything. But
Mm.
then by the time I got to high school, it's like, okay, like that's not cool.
Mm.
Don't know if I can do that anymore. But even so, I think I was always kind of awkward. But I think now I'm able to embrace that a lot more.
Yep. Same here. Definitely very awkward and loved the library when I was a kid. And I think it's lovely now you were saying having more self-compassion. I think for me as well, it's about being able to embrace that side of myself and not feel ashamed about it anymore. That I like reading books and I don't like going to pubs, and that can be completely okay.
Yeah. Unless it's like a pub where you read and everything's quiet.
That would be a wonderful experience. Let me know if you find any like that.
Not yet.
And in terms of the positive parts as well, what strengths have you been able to lean into throughout your life and post identification?
Yeah, I think for myself, I try and keep a bit of a balance. So I definitely will go into the strengths, but I think part of the self-compassion has grown through acknowledging the challenges as well as the strengths. Because I think, um, there's just some things fundamentally that are a lot more challenging for me. So by acknowledging that, I get to be a little bit more free and not
Mm.
have these expectations. But in terms of strengths, oh my goodness, I definitely have, the autistic pattern recognition going on. And I don't know, the autism ADHD where your brain just goes zing, zing, zing everywhere, which I really enjoy and love because it really fuels my creativity.
Mm.
I'm a trained social worker, so I'm kind of trained to see from a systems lens, but I think that's also increased through that pattern recognition. So that helps a lot in my work, in my research. I really love that I can get into a super deep focus, hyper focus mode, and just immerse myself in the things that I really enjoy. Yeah, it's really peaceful and blissful for me.
Yeah, I also love that experience. And then you were saying that there are still challenges these days. What are some of the challenges that you acknowledge and accommodate for yourself?
Oh gosh, there's a few. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, what challenges? Um, Obviously, when you find out that you're neurodivergent, you kind of go through that process of understanding yourself. And I think there's a point where, you're trying to accommodate, you're trying to strategize. But I think that there's a point of acceptance that, that comes where you're like, okay, like this isn't something I can necessarily accommodate or strategize. And like for me, for example, like I only have the capacity to work part-time. That's something that I had to learn through experience. In my whole
Mm.
life, I've only ever worked full-time for 2 years. And by the end of it, I was an absolute zombie and I couldn't function. So I think like when we live in a world that has these expectations around work and productivity and how much we should show up, for me to show up as the best person that I can in my work, it's actually working part-time so that I can have that time to meet my needs.
Yeah, same here. I struggle yeah, to do something consistently for 5 days a week.
Yes.
Definitely, it quickly leads to me being unenthusiastic and tired and not the best version of myself.
Yep. 100%.
So, in terms of work, you work part-time. Does that include the PhD, or is it part-time in the private practice and then the PhD and the podcast on top of that?
Yeah. So I say I work part-time, but but then it sounds like a lot of things. So yeah, so in my private practice, yeah, it is part-time. Yeah, I do the podcast. I do PhD as well. But I think for me, like studying, it's just kind of a little bit different for me. in terms of, I think with research and study, you get to really get into that flow space. And, a lot of the time you're not necessarily having that contact with other people.
Mm,
Whereas like obviously in my line of work, there's a lot of contact with people. So just
yeah.
having that balance of managing my energy, and it's not just about hours, it's also about what I'm doing with that time.
Mm, yeah, makes sense. I'm also doing a PhD and balancing
Oh,
work around that. So
yeah,
I
fun
know that.
times.
Do you have days where it's just the research day and then you can just be in flow for the whole day? Or how do you structure your week?
Yeah, so I have private practice 2 days a week. And then yeah, I find with PhD, because I do get really immersed, I will kind of have those longer blocks. So usually like Thursdays, Fridays, and sometimes Sundays. So I do work weekends, but my like weekend with my partner is like Fridays, Saturdays.
Oh.
I like Sundays because like you don't get any emails or anything because everyone else isn't working, hopefully. So yeah, that's a good balance. Yeah, for me, I think having, yeah, I guess like blocking it out different days, having a different focus.
Mm, yeah, that makes sense. Because as you said, the immersion is both very enjoyable and also very important for doing deep research. Do you want to
Yes.
talk about the research topics that you're exploring in your PhD?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So where am I at? So essentially, I am researching neuro-affirming mental health care for autistic adults. So I'm really excited because I've got ethics approved. I've
Nice.
just recruited a advisory group for to kind of guide the research, and I will be recruiting soon as well. So I'll be interviewing autistic adults and also allied health professionals just to get a shared lived experience and professional understanding of what neuroaffirming care looks like in practice, or, yeah, I guess defining it, because I think it gets thrown around a lot. And I want to kind of get down to like the essence of what it really is.
Mm, that does sound very important because it can become a bit of a buzzword. Be
Yeah.
great to get clear during your research and maybe have I guess, a checklist or a certification or something about what your
Yeah.
affirming would look like.
Yeah, I guess we'll see where the research leads. I think there are other projects along the same line. So I hope that, as we gather more and more data, obviously we will see these common patterns between not just my research, but others as well.
Mm,
But I am hoping to create some sort of framework from it as well, just to give people some evidence-based direction.
wonderful. And in terms of your private practice, is it mainly autistic and ADHD adults that you deal with?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, I've tried working with other clients that aren't autistic and ADHD, and I think they look at me like, you're interesting. Whereas I think like autistic ADHD is like we just, the cadence, the vibe, the energy, it's just, it just flows. Yeah, I think for myself, I guess working to my strengths and working with clients where there's that ease to be really helpful for sustainability for my practice.
Yeah, makes sense. And then on the weekend, I love that it's Friday and Saturday. What do you enjoy getting up to?
Oh, I'm a bit of a homebody, I'll be honest. I live in Brisbane and the weather is atrocious. It's like really muggy and hot. So during the summer, yeah, I don't love going outside because it's just so hot. So I like to hang out at home with my wife and my cats, and they love that. And when I go outside, they're like, "Where are you going?" My cat's not my partner. Because that would be a bit concerning. And yeah, just like spending time with my partner. I really love like playing with ideas as well when you're in work mode, like you might be focused on particular things, but just, like things just rattling around there and making connections. And at the moment, we just bought a VR2 for PlayStation. So, I mean, my partner have been playing with that, which has been, yeah, pretty cool. It does make me a little bit dizzy sometimes. I think it's like, yeah, my senses are like, what is going on? But yeah, it's still pretty fun.
maybe that'll become part of the therapeutic practice down the track as well.
Oh, well, I was actually thinking that was one of my thoughts that were rolling around as I was playing. But yeah, certainly not an expert, but I did look into it. And there is like VR assisted therapy and yeah,
Mm,
and in gaming and stuff. But I think it's obviously not like super mainstream.
yeah. Now let's switch gear to you were talking about in work mode, it's very focused. What do you do to create focus during your working hours,
Create focus. Um,
especially when doing a PhD, when it's very
yeah.
easy to procrastinate and there's so many different directions that one could go in.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest, I take medication for my ADHD. That
Mhm.
definitely helps.
Mm,
Um, but I think the most important thing for me is about checking in with myself and where my energy is at. So, there are some things in my calendar that are set and forget. So, for example, my clients, obviously, I'm going to honor those appointments. But on other days, I'll kind of go with my energy. So, there might be certain things that I need to get done within a particular time frame, but let's just say I've blocked out time to do PhD. I'm like, actually, I'm not feeling that today. Maybe it's some creativity exploration space. Or I might go, oh, yeah, keen for PhD today. So I think prior to understanding my neurodivergence, I would just kind of push through and kind of feel like I wasn't getting anywhere and then doubting and all this sort of spiraling. Whereas now I'm like, you know what? I don't think my mind's there today, and that's okay. We'll try again tomorrow.
mhm,
Um, I do like efficiency. So I like to batch things or group things together. Like with admin, I'll just like have an hour of power. It's like, let's just get in, get this done. It's not fun, but it's part of the work.
mhm,
And yeah, going with I guess, my body and my intuition for what's working for me, as opposed to having these rigid sort of expectations and structures. Like I say to a lot of my clients, like scaffolding is important, like having some sort of structure. But I think when we are really rigid with that, then it can actually become unhelpful. So it's having that
mm.
balance of structure, but like that fluidity as well.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially if the rigidity means ignoring bodily signals. If there's a day that you're sick or just not in the zone, it it makes sense to defer. And do you find, say, after a break, you normally do have the enthusiasm to get back into it on the next scheduled time slot that you have for the PhD?
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know, like with PhD, I enjoy it, but it's like I have to like I think it's like it's obviously very cognitive resource intensive because you are really going deep and having to bring together a lot of threads.
Hmm.
So I find sometimes having like little short wins or something a little bit creative that's kind of up-regulating, a little bit exciting, it can help me to kind of get back into that sort of calm, immersed zone.
Could you give an example of that?
So I have a lot of side quests in my personally and professionally. Like I just have like a rolling list of little things, like little ideas and things that I'm working on that I try to just work on periodically. So like I have the things that have a deadline, but yeah, I just like to have, like, for example, at the moment I'm creating an online program for professionals. Um And yeah, I just kind of have that on in the background and I'm really excited because there's a lot of creativity involved, making it look pretty, structuring it, integrating all of the information. But yeah, so just and switching between things. I think, with PhD, as I said, like you really do need that sort of deep space. But when it comes to other things, like for example, I might switch between admin and maybe something creative and just go back and forth with that so that I'm kind of keeping engaged, but I'm still getting the stuff that's maybe not so fun done.
Yep. Temptation bundling. It makes sense. And then you were talking about the good thing about Sundays being that there are no emails. How do you deal with emails? And I think you have
Mm.
a phone number on the website as well. I'm sorry, I SMS'd you. That might even be worse than email. How do you deal with that work-related communication without getting overwhelmed?
The funny thing is, because I work mostly with autistic people, they generally don't like phone calls. So
Yeah.
it's a mutually beneficial arrangement whereby they're like, I don't want you to call me. And I'm like, that's okay. I don't really like phone calls either. So it's quite rare that I get phone calls. It's usually email, a little bit less, yeah, not SMS so much. I guess for me, like I don't have notifications on. Like a few years ago, I had all my notifications on and I would just get bombarded with them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why am I so stressed all the time? And it's because
Mm,
every 2 seconds it's like ding, ding, ding. So if I'm going to read my emails, I'll purposefully, go onto my laptop, go into my Gmail, read through, respond. And also, I don't read emails and come back. Usually I'll set aside, say, half an hour, read and respond because I just kind of want to get it done. I don't want to kind of spend time reading and then go away and then come back and go, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to read it again. I find that works for me. I think also, I mean, obviously it depends on, the sector that you're in or like your business. But for me, kind of setting boundaries and expectations around communication with clients and like what that looks like between appointments and things like that. Because I guess like, I'm very open about being neurodivergent. So I work really hard to accommodate and cater my services to the people that I work with. And I hope that they also have some understanding and grace for me as well as a neurodivergent person. But yeah,
mm.
everyone not loving phone calls, it works for me.
Also not a fan of phone calls. I'm very appreciative of the AI call screening feature now, so I can find out who they are and what they want.
Yeah.
You talked about the rigid schedules being an anti-pattern for you. Are there any other common pieces of productivity wisdom that actually don't really work that well for you?
Yeah, so it was interesting. I think before you mentioned about consistency and there's always like, oh, just be consistent or I can't think of it, but there's like those popular like, just 10 minutes a day or one
Mm,
habit a day or whatever. I do think there is some value in being consistent, but I think there needs to be some flexibility in what consistency looks like. So for me, consistency is showing up on the day, checking in, going, okay, what's my capacity today? What can I focus on? And doing something, whatever that is, versus, okay, I have to do 2 hours of PhD every single day. And if I don't do that, then I'm going to like be really mad at myself. So I think for me, like consistency is just showing up, not just showing up for the work, but also showing up for myself. Because
mm,
if I'm looking after myself and my needs, naturally I'm probably going to be more in a space where I'm able to, engage in the work, right?
mm.
Um, and yeah, I'm not a fan of push through. I don't know any time that that's ever worked for me. It's just like pushing thoughts through cement, when you got the brain fog and things are just taking way longer because you're just like you're not mentally present and able to do the work.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think it comes back to again like tuning into your body, and if you're honoring yourself, then I think naturally other things are going to flow from that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was going to ask before, and I think you've answered it about how you can keep the threads going between days of working on the PhD, because I find it a challenge for myself, especially right now. I'm doing data analysis, and I find that if I take a week off, because I've been working on a grant application, coming back to it after a week is very hard for me to get started again. But I find doing a little bit, even if I don't really accomplish much, makes it easier for me to pick it up because I've got some momentum and I've made some notes for myself about what was I actually doing yesterday, what's the next step. And it sounds like what you were saying there of checking in and maybe not having super high expectations, but keeping the ball rolling a little bit. Is
Yeah.
that something that helps, or you have a good practice of making sure that you document where you were up to before so that it's easier to resume?
I do like documenting things, like not in a huge way. So for example, for my business, I have what's it called? Notion? Yeah, Notion. So like lots of fun, fancy things on that to help keep track of things. I also use Google Suite, so I have all my little notes and all that. For my PhD, my university uses Microsoft, so I'm kind of, restricted to that. So I use OneNote, which I used to use years ago. I'm like, okay, we'll go here. So, yeah, I basically just have this OneNote outlining, the different phases of my research and the different aspects, just so I can keep track, because there's no way that I'll be able to remember it all. And
Mm.
even just a few dot points to jog my memory. I'm not at the stage of data analysis yet. And I know that's a little bit different because it's like you really do have to immerse yourself in it. And it's not something you can kind of jump in and jump out of. So I guess, yeah, I have done research before, where I've been in that phase. And it's like, I think that's just when the hyper focus, like you just need those big spaces of hyper focus to just get it all
Mm.
done. Cause it's like, it doesn't make sense and it's making more sense. And then like you have this moment of, oh, it makes sense finally. But yeah, it's, yeah, a lot of
Mm.
things you're holding in your mind. Yeah.
Mm. Absolutely. And then also making space for taking breaks so that the epiphany can come in.
Yes. Yeah, I love was it shower thoughts? Um
Yeah.
yeah. And also just like, having water, having food prepared. If I'm going to have one of those hyper focus sessions, I prepare for it so I am looking after my body as well.
Mm. Well, in light of that, we'll take a water break and we'll be back with the audience shortly to talk about mornings and evenings. The Focus and Chill podcast is brought to you by Focus Bear, a focus enhancement app for ADHDers. Staying on top of tasks is easier than ever with Focus Bear's new To-Dos feature. Record a voice note describing what you need to do, and Focus Bear's AI will turn it into a structured set of subtasks and automatically prioritize it for you. You can also take a photo of the paper to-do list, and the AI will work its magic. I'd love for you to try it. You can jump onto focusbear.io or just Google Focus Bear and try it out. Let me know what you think. We're back from our break. We've had a drink. We've dealt with a cat that was doing terrible noises, scratching a mirror, and now ready to ask you about mornings, how you prepare yourself for the day and what type of structure you have in the mornings.
Yeah, so mornings were definitely a nightmare for me, particularly before I knew I was an ADHDer. Um, it was quite an interesting dynamic with me and my partner because my partner is also an ADHDer, but her way of managing that is to go really, really early. And my strategy for that used to be getting there like 10 to 15 minutes late. So, so as you can imagine, that caused a bit of chaos. And also just like always having this sense of being late. Like it's like this dread, it's like this rush. And, when you're entering into something, whether that's work or a meeting or whatever it is, and you're feeling late, it's like you're starting it off dysregulated
Mm.
when really you want to kind of show up and be, calm, present. So after I found out I was an ADHDer, I was like, okay, I've got to make some changes here because I don't want to be racing the clock every time I've got somewhere to go. So what I did is like I use Google for everything. Um and I use my Google Calendar and I use tasks. So every day of the week I have like a list of tasks and I just tick them off and like that, that roughly times. And also I kind of use my cat's feeding time as like a bit of an anchor. So they get fed at 7:30 a.m. every day. And it's like you have to get up because they will just keep meowing and meowing until you do. So it's kind of like, oh, I got to get up, Caitlin. So yeah, I usually take my medication around that time as well because it just helps me to kind of get going in the morning. So yeah, so there are a few things, and like I've talked to some of my friends that are also neurodivergent, and they're like, oh my gosh, like if I did that, I'd find it really stressful, and I actually wouldn't find it helpful. So I think it's important to find what's helpful for you. But I think for me, it's like having that tick list of things, it was definitely a lot better than just running around being stressed in the morning and not knowing if I was going to get there on time. Whereas now I can be confident that I will.
Yeah, I find the same. And the stress for me is more about the stress that's created when I don't do that and then things are out of order and I'm late or I'm not aware of what's coming up. So
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. And then how about the evenings? Do you have the cats getting fed in the evening as well as an anchor?
Yeah, 5 p.m.
Hmm.
on the dot. Or well, actually, sometimes it's like, oh, it's 3 p.m. It's dinner. I'm like, no, it is definitely not dinner time. So yeah, I think yeah, again, the cats is a bit of an anchor. We usually have dinner early, but yeah, I live in Brisbane and we don't have daylight savings here. And in the wintertime, like the sun goes down super early. So having dinner at 5 p.m. isn't weird. Whereas if you live in like Melbourne, it's like, what? That's odd. So yeah, I think for me, nighttime, it's really decompression time. Me and my partner and my cats will just like chill out on the couch, usually just watching something not, yeah, like not too engaging, but interesting enough. You know, my partner and I, we do play the PlayStation, but usually we don't do that closer to bedtime because it can be a bit too overstimulating. And yeah, just having a nice dinner, just relax. Me and my partner, we probably don't talk too much because we're both really tired from the day. So I think like we both have that mutual understanding and give each other that space. But I think like sleep is something that's really important that I do prioritize because if I don't get enough sleep, things start to get really wobbly. Like my executive functioning is like really challenging. Emotions, it's harder to regulate. So
Mm.
that's something that I really prioritize. And it's definitely something that helps with, my neurodivergence to kind of keep things moving along.
Yep. Same here. And I actually find that really validating to hear what you were saying about not talking that much in the evening. I had another guest who shared that as well, that she and her partner are basically, they don't really talk after 8 p.m. And I find it a huge struggle myself. Sometimes my wife will want to have deep and meaningful conversations at 9 p.m. And I just feel like I don't have the capacity at that point, and it doesn't tend to go well. So,
Yeah, I was going to say it's similar in my relationship, except it's at 5 a.m. So, like, I wake up really early and I'll be up and my brain will be buzzing. And then my partner will wake up at like 7:30 and I'll be like, this and this and blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, huh? I haven't had my coffee. Can I have my coffee first? I'm like, yeah, but, but,
have to find
like
the
different
moment
neurotypes.
for sure. Yeah, and I completely agree about sleep being super important too. So it's been fascinating talking with you. Really great to hear about how another PhD candidate balances work and deep immersion in study. If people want to connect with you, either to potentially become a client or to follow your research or to listen to your podcast, where's the best place for them to find you online?
Yeah, so online for my business Cathartic Collaborations, so I have a website www.catharticcollaborations.com.au. I also have all the socials. Like I went overboard with all the socials when I first started my business, but the ones that are the most active would be my Facebook, Instagram, and my LinkedIn. So I have like a business LinkedIn, but also my personal LinkedIn. In terms of my podcast, Divergent Dialogues, I've got it on Substack, also on Spotify, Apple Music, and then it has an RSS feed that goes to like everywhere. I don't know exactly where it is, but it's there. It's on the internet everywhere. So I'm pretty sure if you Google it, you'll find it.
Awesome. Do you have any final words or asks for the audience?
Yeah. So I had to think about this because it's a common question with podcasts, I find. So I think what was really important for me after I found out that I was neurodivergent, it was to design my work around my brain and my neurotype as opposed to the other way around. Often we're taught in workplaces, this is the mold, figure out how to like squeeze into it. And that obviously didn't work for me. It's a big part of why I went into my own private practice. So yeah, I think just like give yourself permission to understand yourself and your needs and find ways to integrate that into your work because um I think when things are aligning in that way, it's going to be a lot easier and things are going to flow a lot more. The other thing I would say as well is I really focus on sustainability over particular goals, metrics, successes. For me, sustainability is success. And, as someone who does live with disability and does have reduced work capacity, that's something that I do need to keep in mind because I would like to continue with my business. I would like to finish my PhD. But if I work in a way that's not in alignment with my needs and I burn myself out, then I might not have a choice around that. So I think being proactive, yeah, and again, giving yourself permission to meet those needs is really important.
100%. We'll wrap the show with that. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Focus and Chill podcast. To listen to other episodes, jump onto podcast.focusbear.io. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or you know someone who'd be a good fit, email us at team@focusbear.io. Otherwise, stay focused, stay chilled, and peace out.